Journey with us into the mystical realm of the unicorn, a creature of legend and wonder. For centuries, this magnificent beast has captivated humanity, symbolizing purity, grace, and untamed magic. Today, we embark on an epic adventure to uncover its origins, evolution, and profound cultural significance. Our journey begins in the East with the revered Kirin of ancient Chinese mythology. This auspicious creature, a harbinger of good fortune, possessed a single horn and a gentle, wise spirit. Across continents, ancient Greek texts spoke of the Monoceros, a wild ass with a single horn in India. Described by Ctesias, this creature was fierce and untamable, a stark contrast to its later European counterpart. As we move to medieval Europe, the unicorn transformed, becoming a powerful symbol of purity and grace. It was often associated with Christ and the Virgin Mary, embodying divine innocence and spiritual power. The legend of the unicorn hunt emerged, a captivating tale of pursuit and capture. Only a pure maiden could tame the elusive beast, luring it into submission with her innocence. Its horn, known as the alicorn, was believed to possess miraculous healing and detoxifying properties. Unicorns grace coats of arms and Renaissance art, signifying nobility, virtue, and strength. Their image adorned castles and royal banners, cementing their place in European cultural identity. The Age of Enlightenment brought skepticism, as naturalists sought rational explanations for mythical creatures. The narwhal's tusk was often mistaken for the legendary alicorn, challenging long-held beliefs. Despite scientific scrutiny, the unicorn's allure never faded, finding new life in literature. From classic tales to modern blockbusters, it remains a beloved icon in film and popular culture. The unicorn's journey is a testament to humanity's enduring fascination with the mythical. It continues to inspire, a powerful and enchanting symbol across cultures and through time. Thank you for joining us on this magical exploration of the unicorn's legendary legacy.
So you think you know the unicorn, right? That sparkling, magical horse from all the storybooks? Well, I want you to get ready to think again. Today, we're digging into the real story behind this legendary creature, and I can promise you its history is way stranger and a lot more fascinating than you probably ever imagined.
I mean, when you picture a unicorn, what pops into your head? It's that majestic white horse, a symbol of purity with a shimmering horn, yeah? But what if the creature that kicked this whole thing off wasn't a horse at all? What if it wasn't gentle, and it definitely wasn't sparkling white? What if it was something else entirely?
To find the unicorn's true origin, we have to travel way, way back. And not to some whimsical fairy tale kingdom either. We're going to the dusty, vibrant landscapes of ancient India, as seen through the eyes of Greek physicians and historians. Okay, so here is the first major plot twist. The unicorn doesn't start as a myth. It actually starts as, well, as natural history. The very first written account we have of it comes from a Greek physician named Critias way back in the 4th century BC, and his report was taken seriously. I mean, respected Roman writers like Pliny the Elder and Aelian referenced it and built on it, describing it as a real, if, very exotic animal.
So what did Critias actually write about? He called it the Indicos Onos, which translates to the Indian wild ass. So yeah, forget the horse. This thing was described as having a white body, a crimson head, deep blue eyes, and a single horn that was black, white, and red. It was also supposed to be unbelievably fast and ferociously wild. The difference between that original description and our modern idea is it's startling. The first unicorn was a fierce, multicolored wild ass whose horn wasn't really magical. It was medicinal. People believed it could cure epilepsy and neutralize poison. Our modern unicorn is a gentle, pure white horse, a symbol of pure magic. They're just two completely different animals.
So, where did this absolutely bizarre description even come from?
Well, the leading theory is that Cretheus was basically playing a game of telephone across continents. See, he never saw the animal himself. He was just recording second- and third-hand stories from travelers. And those tales were likely just embellished, totally distorted descriptions of the very real, very powerful, single-horned Indian rhinoceros.
Okay, so how did we get from this fierce, misunderstood beast from India to the gentle creature of purity we think of today? For that, we have to jump forward in time to the Middle Ages. This is where the unicorn got a complete identity overhaul and transformed into one of Christianity's most powerful symbols. A huge part of this transformation came from a book called The Physiologist. It was this early medieval collection of animal stories, and they were all packed with Christian allegories. It keeps the unicorn's wild, uncatchable nature, but it introduces a very specific and very symbolic weakness. And this is that famous trick that would define the unicorn for like 1,000 years. The story goes that the only way to catch this wild beast is to have a pure maiden wait for it in the forest. The unicorn, drawn to her innocence, will come to her, lay its head in her lap, and just fall asleep. And only then can the hunters capture it. Now, this wasn't just some clever hunting story. For people in the medieval world, it was a profound religious allegory. The wild, untamable unicorn came to represent Christ himself. The maiden? She was the Virgin Mary. And the unicorn laying its head in her lap symbolized Christ's incarnation, God becoming human, made vulnerable through his connection to her purity.
This really powerful story wasn't just something you'd find in books. It was brought to life in what is, arguably, one of the most magnificent and complex works of art from the entire medieval period.
I'm talking about The Hunt of the Unicorn. It's a series of 7 absolutely colossal, breathtakingly detailed tapestries. You can see them today at the Cloisters in New York, and they're just a masterpiece of storytelling in thread. They weave together this whole dramatic saga of the unicorn's pursuit, its capture, and its ultimate fate.
And what's so brilliant about these tapestries is how they have these layers of meaning. On one level, a secular one, you can read the story as an allegory for courtly love. A nobleman trying to woo his beloved lady. But on a deeper religious level, it's this rich, complex allegory for the passion of Christ, his betrayal, his suffering, and his resurrection. And that last panel is just so powerful. After being brutally killed by the hunters in the tapestry before it, we see the unicorn miraculously alive again. It's serene, it's enclosed in this little paradise-like garden. It's just a stunning visual metaphor for the resurrected Christ, a symbol of sacrifice, rebirth, and eternal life. From a misidentified rhino to a symbol for Christ, it's already been a wild ride. But how on earth did we get from there to the rainbow-made icon of fantasy, tech, and pride that we have today? Well, the unicorn's modern evolution is just as dramatic.
The modern unicorn has really become this blank canvas for our own ideals. It represents the pure, untainted magic of childhood fantasy. It's also become a powerful symbol for uniqueness and just being yourself, for being that one-of-a-kind creature in a world that often pushes us to conform. In a totally different arena, it's a benchmark for rare success, and it's also been embraced as this beautiful and potent symbol of hope, magic, and pride within the LGBTQ+ community.
That business meaning is especially telling. In the world of tech and venture capital, a unicorn is a startup company that's valued at over $1 billion. The term was coined specifically to highlight how statistically rare and almost mythical an achievement like that is, which is a perfect echo of the creature's ancient reputation for being nearly impossible to find.
So, even though the pictures in our heads have changed so dramatically, from a fierce beast to a Christian icon to a rainbow glitter bomb, the core ideas have actually stayed remarkably consistent. Across all this time, the unicorn has always stood for something pure, something incredibly rare, and something deeply authentic. And those are qualities we always seem to be searching for.
And all of this leaves us with a really fascinating final thought. The unicorn has gone from a traveler's tall tale to a symbol of divine sacrifice, and now to an icon of individuality and billion-dollar innovation.
It's always been a kind of mirror, reflecting the ideals of the culture that imagines it. So when you look at the unicorn we have today, what do you think it tells you about us?
Okay, when you picture a unicorn, what pops into your head? I'm guessing it's something magical, pure, maybe even covered in a whole lot of glitter. But what if I told you the original unicorn was a ferocious, untamable beast, and that its story is basically a centuries-long game of telephone that involves Greek doctors, mistaken identity, and even the Bible? Let's dig in and uncover the real story of the unicorn.
So I really want to start by asking you, how well do you actually know the unicorn? Because the creature that's prancing all over our pop culture today, it's a million miles away from where it all started. You know, when we think unicorn now, our minds just automatically jump to this. We're talking pure, gentle creatures tied to magic, rainbows, and sparkles. And kind of weirdly, in the business world, it's the go-to nickname for those super rare billion-dollar startup companies.
But where did this whole idea even come from? It definitely wasn't from a sparkly notebook from the 90s. To figure it out, we have to travel way, way back in time to what might just be the very first sighting.
Check this out. This description from Cretaceous, a Greek physician back in the 4th century BCE, this is pretty much ground zero. And listen to what he's saying. He's not talking about some magical fairy tale animal. He's documenting what he thinks is a real animal in India, describing its size, its colors, and that single horn. There's no magic here, right? It just sounds like a very specific and, honestly, a very real-sounding beast.
So how in the world did we get from a fierce, wild ass to a magical horse? Well, it was a long, long game of telephone. Cretias's story got passed down, and every time someone retold it, it changed a little. Aristotle thought he was talking about the oryx. Then, Pliny the Elder mixed it up with other animal parts, basically creating a monster. And then, and this is the real game changer, the Greek translation of the Bible used the word monokeros, which just means one-horned, to describe this powerful beast. And that cemented the idea of the unicorn in Western minds for centuries.
So let's just be crystal clear about this. The original unicorn was not your friend. It was described as incredibly fast, super powerful, and completely untamable. It was a symbol of wild, ferocious nature.
Okay, so we've established this terrifying beast. How on earth did that become a symbol of purity and gentleness? Well, for that, we need to jump forward a few hundred years to the Middle Ages.
You have to remember that during the medieval period, pretty much everything was seen through the lens of religion and symbolism. So the unicorn's single horn, that came to represent the unity of God and Christ. And its untamable, fierce nature, that was seen as a divine power that could only be calmed by something equally pure.
And this belief led to one of the most famous legends of all time. The only way you could capture this fierce unicorn was to send a pure maiden into the woods. The story goes that the beast, drawn to her innocence, would come and calmly lay its head in her lap, fall asleep, and only then could the hunters capture it. It became this powerful allegory for Christ being drawn to the Virgin Mary. Okay, so we've got a fierce ancient beast and a pure medieval symbol. But let's circle back to that big question. Was any of this based in reality at all? It is time to crack this myth wide open. So, the million-dollar question, was the unicorn ever a real animal? The short answer is no. But trust me, the long answer is way more interesting. See, the myth of the unicorn wasn't just created out of thin air. It was more like a patchwork quilt of real-world things. That single magical horn with healing powers, that was probably inspired by narwhal tusks or maybe powdered rhino horn that was sold for medicinal purposes. That untamable nature, a pretty clear reflection of actual fierce animals that humans had a really hard time domesticating.
Let's look at the main culprits here. The Indian rhino, a real, powerful, one-horned animal from Asia, almost certainly what Cratias was hearing about. Then you have the narwhal. For centuries, clever Viking traders sold those long, spiraled tusks to Europeans, passing them off as genuine unicorn horns. And finally, animals like the oryx, a type of antelope, look like they have a single horn when you see them from the side, which just kept the myth going.
So, the myth was debunked, right? Built on misidentification and some pretty clever marketing. But that is not the end of the story, not by a long shot. Let's talk about why, in our modern scientific age, we are more obsessed with the unicorn than ever before.
In our world today, this ancient creature didn't just fade into history. Nope, it found a completely new and totally surprising place to live and thrive.
$1 billion. What in the world could a mythical horse possibly have to do with this much money?
Well, back in 2013, the world of venture capital adopted the term unicorn to describe something they saw as just as rare and magical, a startup that hits a valuation of over $1 billion. And the name totally fits, right? Achieving that kind of success is statistically just as unlikely as finding the mythical beast itself.
So the modern unicorn's identity is this really fascinating mix. I mean, it's a huge force in pop culture. It's also a powerful symbol of pride and individuality, especially in the LGBTQ+ community, where its whole vibe of rainbows and magic is all about celebrating uniqueness. And it's a major benchmark for success in business. But through it all, it somehow still holds on to that little glimmer of magic and innocence. It's an absolutely incredible transformation when you stop and think about it. It went from being a fierce, untamable monster in ancient texts to a modern icon of limitless, pure potential in just about every field you can imagine.
You know, the great mythologist Joseph Campbell once said, "Myths are public dreams." And the story of the unicorn really shows us that our dreams change over time. We shape our myths to reflect what we fear, what we worship, and what we aspire to be.
Which leaves us with one final thought. The unicorn has served so many different purposes for humanity over thousands of years. It kind of makes you wonder, what myths do we still need to believe in today?